Islands Police Department committed to safety, service, and innovation.
He said that black smoke was constantly coming out of the burn pits 24/7. And my reaction to it was like, wow, that doesn't sound very safe. I wonder what that's about. And in my mind, I couldn't imagine at the time that type of system operating could potentially harm our service members.
Journalism that seeks and reveals. That's On Point with me, Meghna Chakrabarty.
Weekdays at 1 p.m. on WTJX FM 93.1, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands.
Good morning. This is meteorologist Russ Murley with your WTJX local forecast. This is Monday, the 3rd of November. Sunshine, partly sunny at times, isolated showers, upper 80s this afternoon. Easterly winds at 10 to 20. We'll see a few clouds with isolated showers tonight, low 78 to 82. Sunshine, partly sunny at times, isolated showers, upper 80s to near 90.
WTJX 93.1, Charlotte Amalia, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands.
The views and opinions expressed on Analyze This are entirely those of the on-air participants and do not reflect those of the station's board, management, staff, or underwriters.
And good morning. We are back to Analyze This, which is transmitted every weekday from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. every morning here on WTGX 93.1 FM, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands. And I am your guest host, former Senator Samuel Carrión, filling in for Neville James. And we just had the first section of this morning's program where we had Yvonne Peterson sharing a little bit of her nonprofit organization and everything that they've been doing. But this second half now will be very interesting also. We have a Crucian author with us who is no stranger to us here in the Virgin Islands, which is Leon Perkins, who has published a literacy book to educate the next generation. So we are happy to have Mr. Perkins here with us. Good morning.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
Good. And welcome to Analyze This. How are you this morning?
I'm doing well. Everything's good.
Good. So for those that don't know you, we want to start off with sharing a little bit about yourself so people get to know you. So I would like us to talk about the man, the journey, and the book. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So the man, born and raised here in the Virgin Islands, family, generations, Virgin Islands.
Crucian.
Man,
sure. Yeah.
Frederiksted, to be specific. Most people will know me or my parents, grandparents for Perkins, Calvin Perkins. He was a postal office and a very frequent person within the community, women especially. And currently a Virgin Islands National Guard member, a senior logistic non-commissioned officer. And doing that,
thank you for your service.
Thank you. In doing that, I learned a lot of different skills. Once I was a recruiter. I recruited for the Virgin Islands National Guard. Also was an engineer, a military police officer. But really and truly, all of that kind of culminated to who I am today, to be able to speak about finances. Throughout my years, I started to look into finance because it was just a passion that I had. Funny story, when I was transitioning from 6th grade to 7th grade, we had a summer program, and during that summer program, they kind of introduced financial literacy and entrepreneurship. That was the first time I heard the word, and I kind of had the bug since then. And throughout that time, I never really had more of a, follow-up. So it kind of fell to the side. So during my time in the military, I kind of started to wander and started to do my own research. And in my own research, I kind of learned a lot about finance. And in doing so, I became a lot more interested in the stock market, crypto market, finances, and general. And it became and created a I guess you could say, a bug for me to want to do or know more about finance. And then after I did that, I kind of wanted to think about how to get it to the next generation. So I have a 13-year-old son. He goes to Church of God, very, very intelligent and so forth. And one thing I realized with kids is sometimes, well, you have a daughter, right? So like, like having a kid, it's easier for a teacher to teach them something than a parent to teach them. So like for me, trying to educate him on stuff, it kind of becomes a battle between him learning it and him trusting what I'm saying. So I kind of thought about how could I give him this information. And in doing so, I kind of stumble upon, hey, instead of me doing a class with him, why not start doing something that he can understand at his level? So it came to a book, and it was like, why make a book for just him when I could just do one for the entire Virgin Islands?
So it's really started with you as a father trying
Correct.
to share your knowledge with your son.
Correct. And in doing so, I just created something that can be given to any student, whether it's a Virgin Islander or somebody in the States. And the book itself is a financial literacy course on how to navigate life as a young independent. Really and truly, it can work for any age group above 8 that can understand it. As an adult, I've purchased a book and was like, man, I need this just as much as a kid. But the book is in story form, so it kind of helps with understanding. And within the book itself, it has some check on learning type stuff, basically to enhance that learning capability and so forth.
So then the inspiration really then was birthed out of your heart as a father, right?
Correct.
To be able to pass that knowledge in. So that's where inspiration came in.
To pass the knowledge on to him and all the persons who can read it. For me, I have always thought about what can be better for the Virgin Islands. And to me, finance is one of those things that you have to push forward.
I was going to ask you you, then, how important is financial literacy? And lately, it's a term that we're hearing a lot. We just came out of the program before, and we had Ms. Pearson speaking about how one of her programs within her nonprofit organization is financial literacy. How important is financial literacy? And then, and then in your case, publishing a book for children, how important it is to start at what age and why?
So financial literacy itself is very, very important. Let's take, for instance, credit score. If you increase the average of the Virgin Islands credit score 100 points, that will increase the amount of money that can be spent within the territory. Let's say, for instance, me and you are buying a house, right? Just say easy number, $1,500, both of us. I have a good credit score, you have a bad one. I'm paying $1,500, but you're paying $1,800. I have $300 left over to spend within the economy, just because I have a better credit score and I'm paying less for my monthly mortgage. Whereas you have to pay $1,800, that $300 less, you have less to spend. So that's less money to spend on WAPA, less money to spend in Plaza, less money to spend on local vendors. So within just increasing your credit score by 100, each person within the territory, we can literally save money and spend more money within the territory versus having to spend it and giving it to somebody else. Because the only person that really making it money more based off of that, the credit score, is a bank. And a bank technically doesn't generate revenue for the Virgin Islands. Their job is to hold on to money and so forth. So for me, that is one thing that financial literacy is very, very important in reference to. And then also, as far as teaching it, my thing is the earlier you teach it, the better off somebody will be, because it becomes more repetitive in their mind and in how they operate and so forth.
Yeah, and make the necessary changes, or in
Correct.
order to be able to obtain wealth.
Correct.
And so what I love about what you're doing is exactly that you were thinking on the next generation.
Correct.
And maybe giving them an opportunity that maybe we didn't have, or our
Correct.
fathers or parents didn't have, to be able to empower them.
Correct. So like right now, if you think about opening an account for your kid, an investment account, you invested in S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies within the United States, and you get a 8%, which is typically the amount that they do adjusted for inflation yearly. Compound interest at $50 a month, you could net $20,000 to give your kid from the age of 1 to 18, which is a graduating gift. $20,000 for any kid will change their trajectory of life.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So just knowing and understanding that possibility means that the opportunities for financial literacy is enormous, because at $50 a month, most folks can afford to do $50 in an account and just let it go for a long period of time and so forth.
So, you're a fairly young individual,
Yes.
I would say.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to share your age or approximately, but you on air. But I want to, point that out for those that are listening. We have others that are viewing. So, this is not someone who, has white hair. This is a young man who understand with your life experience and the journey you've been through really shaped you and shaped your views when it came to money and the importance of educating your peers and even the next generation to come.
Correct. So I'm 36. So for me, I just think about what I should have been known at 18, 20, 25.
That you wish you would knew, right?
Yeah, I wish I knew, because that would have changed a lot within my life. So knowing what I know at 36, if I can give somebody at the age of 20 that information, technically they should be able to do a lot better at the age of when they reach 36, because they essentially learn from my mistakes, and that's one of the big things that I want to be able to do. Have them learn from the mistakes that I and other persons have made, so that they don't make those. So now they are quote unquote further off in life and so forth. Yeah, because we spent a lot of money on stuff that we don't need or don't know. And looking back,
Tell me about it.
Looking back, you'll probably be like, man, I wish I didn't, or I wish I did it a different way. So for me, if I can teach somebody, it eliminate a lot of that stressors in life, you know what I mean? So
Especially, as young people, you start focusing on things that, that has their place, but then you don't put them in the right,
correct,
priority level where it should go. When we talk about the shoes and we talk about some of,
shoes, cars, clothes, all that stuff.
But what about purchasing a land? And doing investments. So you became like a self-taught
correct
individual in this field, right? You
correct.
developed some interest and you did your research and you read the books.
Correct.
So it's possible.
Yes. So one of the great things about life, I guess you could say, is when you continually learn this stuff, you learn some random things, but then it kind of pushes you in the right direction. So for me, when I graduated from high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do in life, but I always thought finance was unattainable because there wasn't no YouTube when I graduated. I graduated in 2007, so there wasn't no YouTube. Things were like encyclopedias. I would have had to go to the New York Stock Exchange or go with a firm in the States. I didn't know anything about it, and I didn't have anybody that was close to me that knew anything about it. So gathering that information was very, very tough. So for me, the way that I look at it is, with the information that we have now, it's very, very easy for you to learn and understand. So for me, when I was reading books, doing the YouTubes and learning them kind of things, it kind of propelled me to take a kind of a longer route, but it still reach the achieved goal and so forth. So for me, learning about it on my own, it felt empowering, but at the same time, I think about how much further I could have been a lot earlier if somebody else had helped me and so forth. So for me, being able to give persons this education and this knowledge, whether at the age of 13 or all the way up to an adult, I just wanted to be able to help them to be better, so that when they're better, then we have a better economy within the Virgin Islands.
In general, because it starts by one person, and then
correct.
It starts by one family, and
Yep.
then it's a community, and then it's a whole island.
Correct.
So one person at a time. That's beautiful. The importance of being able to empower someone else and giving
correct.
someone else the tools necessary. Not just teach them. Not just give them a fish, right? But teach them how to fish.
Correct.
And this is part of what your book really brings to the children that read it, you know. And so we're gonna dive into what we can find within the book. But before that, how was that journey then of becoming an author and writing? You know, how long did it take you? So share a little bit about that experience for us.
So doing the book was a little bit scary. It's self-published, so self-published means it's self-funded, right? So originally I was like, how can I make this without making it very expensive, first off? And how can I touch on all the topics that I think a kid should know without it being overwhelming? Because the book has 14 chapters, and those are not all the chapters that any person needs to know, but it's just the baseline for what a kid should know. So in doing that, I had to take off my, I guess you could say, adult brain and just put it in the lens of how a kid should perceive it, which kind of gave me the idea of going through a storyline versus the actual educational book, just meaning
because it has to be attractive at the same time. You're touching on a subject that sometimes for children
very boring.
Very boring. It has no interest.
Like now I'm really studying for my Series 7, which is a certification for investing, and it's very boring. I mean, to the point where it's like, man,
so
you fall asleep.
So if it's boring for us, you know, at a certain point, you know, adults imagine children.
Kid.
So as you write, you have to write with their perspective in mind, and almost like you said, you know, change your brain for a moment and try to think as a child, you know.
Correct. And in doing so, it kind of helped me just to have the understanding of the conversations with my son or any other kid. How would they perceive it and how it should be taught? So being that it was a storybook, it kind of worked for itself because, you know, like once you write in a story, it kind of like continuing. So it basically talks about a boy who wants to buy a toy for his friend, but he doesn't know how. So he learns about all those different steps, and then after he learns about the steps, he kind of pushes forward. So it starts off with like wages, which is the number one thing somebody should know. How much you getting paid, why you getting paid, and some jobs are paid more, some jobs are paid less, just based off of qualifications or the complexity of the job. Then goes off, he finds out what wages are. Then he learns about budgeting. He basically has some money, buy something frivolous, and didn't realize he spent over the money that he was supposed to buy for his friend, the gift for his friend. Then he bought this gift. No, he can't return it because the price of what he bought it for isn't the price that it should be anymore. He wants to sell it. So now he finds out about assets and liabilities. Assets and liabilities are one of the biggest things within our community, because you would think buying a house is technically considered an asset, but is it really an asset? Because if you're still paying a mortgage, then it's really not an asset. It's still a liability because you're paying on it. But until you start generating revenue on it, then it's now asset. So even if you buy a bike, you could buy a bike, that's a liability. But now if you're using it to run a paper route, then now it's an asset because it's part of you generating revenue. And throughout the book, it basically goes like that, and touches on those 14 subjects. So I said wages, budgeting, assets and liabilities, the stock market, the crypto market, the buying a house, buying a car, insurance, credit card and debit cards, credit scores, life insurance and insurance, and
all of that is in the book.
All of that is in the book and so forth, and it teaches it in a storyboard form. That's kind of great in the sense of understanding.
Good. Well, we're going to take a break, and then when we get back, we're going to dive a little more into all of that is in the book, and continue this conversation. So we'll be right back after this break, and you're listening to Analyze This. Welcome back, and you're listening to Analyze This on WTGX FM 93.1, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands, and this is your guest host, former Senator Samuel Carrión, filling in for Neville James, who will be back with you tomorrow. I know some of you have been missing Senator Neville James, and he'll be back tomorrow to be able to share back with his listening audience. But we've had a very interesting program today, and this last section of today's program, we've had the honor to have a Crucian author with us, Leon Perkins, who has published a financial literacy book to educate the next generation. And we've been talking about a little bit about himself, his journey, what inspired him to write this book, and we heard about that it was based on his son, to be able to pass that knowledge to his son. And he said, if I'm doing this for my son, then let me just then expand and ensure that everyone else around his age can also be empowered. So that's awesome.
Correct. Yeah, just basically to spread it throughout the territory and throughout the world, and hopefully. And one of the great things that I did when making a book is something that we haven't talked about, is the curriculum. So writing a book is great for anybody to pick it up, know it, understand it, but I took it one step further and created a curriculum for it to be able to be in schools. So
Awesome.
With that, it basically...
So it's almost like a textbook.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a textbook, basically. And within the curriculum, there's probably 18 hours of education that a teacher can give to a student or a parent can give to a child. And the book and the curriculum goes hand in hand. So you could basically, the goal is to read a chapter, learn some stuff about the chapter, and then do some hands-on within the chapter and so forth. So
let's go back to talk a little bit. You were sharing with us before we went to the break some of the content inside the book, and the topics that you share. The title of the book is
Value Your Future.
Value Your Future. What inspired that title? Because sometimes when it comes to writing, you can be sometimes a great writer, but then finding the title for the book, sometimes, you have to bust your head trying to figure out, what am I going to, name this book? Because that's what really captures the attention of the reader at the beginning. When you look at the cover, and by the way, I love the cover in your book. Can you hold it for those that are viewing through our streaming? Value Your Future. Yes. Tell us a little bit about the cover and the title.
So the title came up because I've interacted with a lot of the younger generation, and some of them actually don't believe that they have a future, which is kind of...
You can raise it a little bit higher so we could,
So a lot of the generations don't believe that they have a future. And to me, that was one of the most interesting conversations that I've had.
Or sometimes they don't think about their future. They think about their now.
Correct. And I just wanted them to know and understand that they are valued, and they do have a value within their life and so forth. It's not something that they just want to quote unquote throw away or just leave by the wayside. Go out there and do things. You are valuable to yourself and to the things that you're doing and so forth. So within the book, the cover, it has a boy basically, and that is a depiction of my son. So I basically gave the picture to the illustrator, and he basically was like, cool, and he drafted it based off of my son, and from there it kind of blossomed into that. And within the cover, it does have a lot of like elements of finance and so forth. So yeah, I just for me the title is very, very important, because I just want the next generation to know that their future is valuable, and it's not, just don't waste it. The more that you know now, the better off you will be in the future and such.
So it allows them to start thinking, about their future, because as a child or as a young individual, sometimes you don't we were saying, you don't think about your future. That's and then the decisions that we do then, decisions that we do now, affects us tomorrow.
Correct.
We are the result of our experiences.
Correct.
So it's important, like you mentioned in the beginning, for them to start with the right foot.
Yes.
And this helping them.
The earlier you start, the better off you'll be, which is one of the weirdest things, because as a kid, especially like, let's say you're graduating from high school, you're like, yes, in 4 years I'm going to have a degree. So you're already thinking, yes, 4 years from now, but we don't think about that when it comes to like finance. You know what I mean? So hey, I want to save up for this house. How long should I be planning? Where should I have started? If I'm talking about buying a car, I'm like, let me just go out and get a loan versus, hey, let me save up from now. If I start saving from now, in the next 4 to 5 years, I'll be able to buy a car and so forth.
So it's important, excuse me, it's important to start then teaching these principles, right,
Correct.
at an early age,
Correct.
and using practical elements like how you do within
Correct.
your book, stories that the children can relate to, and connect them to financial literacy, and it's teaching them those financial principles
Correct.
at a very early age. You know, whether it's even as they're eating, you know, and they have maybe 3 different types of food, and you know, and different ways like how you bring it up is important.
Correct. And within the book itself, just some of the topics kind of sparked the interest. My goal also was to give them that information, which would also force them to have conversation with the parents. Because if you go to school and you read about the stock market, and your kid comes to you and like, hey, mom, dad, what's the stock market? And you have no answer for them, then you're gonna be like, maybe I should be looking into some of these things.
So it's important for us as parents then
Correct.
also to educate ourselves.
Correct.
So you know, this might be a whole thing for the whole family to
Correct.
really, you know, get the necessary knowledge that is crucial. So some of the key lessons that you hope your young readers or even their parents will take away from the stories.
Yes. So the number one I want kids and their parents to look into is the aspect of the stock market. For me, I'm a big stock market junkie in the sense of pushing that for the Virgin Islands or just for the near future. With the onset of artificial intelligence, aka AI, a lot of the things that we take for granted as far as work might not be there. So investing to me might be the next wave of how persons generate revenue for themselves. So for me, advocating for the stock market is the number one thing. So within the chapter, it speaks about how the stock market is and how persons can invest in it and so forth. So in doing so, my goal is to, hey, this kid is reading it, maybe spark the interest for the parents to hear it, pick it up, and start learning about it for them, for the kids. Because, like I said, if you start with, let's say, $50 as a newborn, typically the S&P 500 generates at 8 to 10% a year. Right now we're up like 19%. So if you do $50 a month compounded interest, you should be netting around $20,000 for that kid. So you can only do that if you start to learn about the stock market.
And what age or age group is the book really aimed for, and how do you make financial concepts engaging to that is understandable for children?
So that was one of the tougher topics for me to understand also. I wanted to gear it around middle school, so that 10 to 13 age group. And in doing so, I realized that some kids really do have I guess, a better understanding of certain things. So a middle schooler is where it was geared for, but a middle schooler, high schooler can pick it up and read it and still understand everything within the book, and it will help them. So yeah, any persons, to me, any at the age of 10 plus will kind of understand, and it will help them, because I think that's around the age where you start to, I was asking for money. Mom, I need money for this. Dad, I need money for this. Can you buy me this? So now it kind of helps them to understand money doesn't just come from
grow on trees.
It don't just grow on trees. So we have to do something for you to receive it. So hey, this is one way for you to do it. And it also kind of might motivate that age group to start doing things that might generate revenue for themselves. You know, opening or cutting grass for on the weekends. They used to do paper routes. They used to do selling candy in school, stuff like that. So it kind of like sparks their interest on the business side of entrepreneurship for that generation.
Yeah, my daughter's always looking for ways how to generate money and coming up with all kinds of ideas. Dad.
Correct.
So I understand, and I remember even in high school, or at junior high school back in my days, I developed that entrepreneur spirit. I used to maybe sell candies or pencils and erasers and stuff like that.
Yeah, so at that age group is why I wanted them to just spark that interest and so forth.
So in your opinion, what are some of the biggest misconceptions or mistakes that people make when it comes to money management?
Oh, so yeah, being in the Caribbean, we have a lot of scared tactics, and that's rightfully so. We had a lot of things that happened where persons were afraid to do certain things. One of them was investing the stock market. They were like, nah, because the stock market is gonna crash, and stock market has crashed so many times and rebounded so many times. You could talk about COVID. You could talk about the dot-com bubble. You could talk about Patriot Day. All of those things are essentially things that drove the market down, but it recovered and so forth. So if you are holding for a long period of time, i.e. 5 years, 10 years, those little blurs in those stock market bumps, you'll be surviving over. Like I said, the S&P 500, which is the top 500 companies within the U.S., year over year, they might have a bad year, but over 10 years, a decade, it's up anywhere between 8 to 12%. Compounded. That's a lot of money compared to you saying, hey, I'm gonna put it under my mattress, or I'm gonna give it to the bank. The bank gives you like 0.01% interest on your money. So if you're only gonna get 0.01, then you might as well just put it in an investment account. And it's right now, the way how technology is, it is very, very, very easy. You could basically just put it in an account, set it and forget it. The same way how you technically invest in GERS, the same way you could basically invest in the stock market, or you do it on your own.
So in other words, fear might be one of the
Correct.
Right, fear to take risk.
Correct.
So I think it's also crucial for people to get informed.
Correct.
Educate yourself, buy a book, and start reading. Now, like you mentioned, we have access to information
Correct.
Better than before. Before it was such a challenge; you had to have a whole encyclopedia in order to be able to, But now, it's at our fingertips, so we have information that is available. So be informed. Now, in reference to the journey, right? Writing and publishing a book is no easy task.
Correct.
So, what's the process? What was the process like for you, and how long did it take you? And some of them, and even the challenges, right? Getting your book published, because that's one thing, and now you're trying to get it distributed.
Yes. So it took like 8 months, and 4 of those months were technically written for the illustrations. The book has a lot of illustrations, and they're beautifully drawn and so forth, so it was a lot. But for me, the writing portion, it took a minute because I wanted to make sure everything that was in there needs to be in there, and the things that doesn't need to be in there didn't make it to whoever. But for the most part, the journey was difficult in the sense of formulating the conversation within the book, because I've never written one before, so that was probably the hardest portion. But like organizing it, that was pretty easy because I kind of knew what I wanted to teach the audience and so forth. So that portion there kind of fair, but outside of that, it kind of took a little longer and so forth. For me, the challenges that I have right now is I've been speaking to a few schools. Spoke to a micro school in the States. They're looking into wanting to put it as part of their curriculum. Spoke to a school over in St. Thomas, where I'll be this weekend doing some reaching out to different schools and so forth, but also for an event in St. Thomas on this Saturday, and also here in St. Croix. So I had a planned meeting with the administration, but right now we had to get a pushback based off of some scheduling conflicts. But hopefully we'll have that meeting, and within that meeting we can produce a path forward for Virgin Islands students to receive the book and curriculum within the next year and so forth.
Yeah, because I was hearing, I think that's one of the great things, the fact that you have a curriculum along with the book.
Correct.
So it's very dynamic and interacting.
Correct. Yeah. So
have you thought about also maybe having a workbook also along with?
Yeah, so that's part of it. So
Okay.
the curriculum is 3 parts. You have the original book, which is a standalone book. You can read it on your own. But then within the curriculum, it's a teacher or parents handout workbook, basically. You teach them everything they need to know how to deliver the class. And then there's also a student workbook, which has extra activities and extra things to follow along. Within the curriculum, it also has tests and quizzes and fill in the blanks, those kind of things. So that way, that it's not just, hey, I read this, but also, hey, do you really understand it, and how can you implement it within your actual everyday as a student or as a teacher and so forth. So, in a perfect world, meet with the administration, decide how many books we will give out to all the students within the Virgin Islands. From there, I do a pilot school and teach all the administration who will be administering the book. After I do that, then I let it disseminate to the entire schools, and from there, the teachers teach the actual subjects in school, and yeah, that will be a perfect world. So.
Nice. But I see you have your plan laid out, and
Correct.
you're doing your due diligence to ensure it reaches the hands of the children needed. What kept you motivated during this whole process?
A lot of the people that have reached out and loved the book actually read the book and bought and read the book. Like I said, an adult friend of mine's, shout out to Esco, he bought it and he was like, yeah, this is actually a great book for finance just in general. And at the level, he's an adult, but he was like, it's written for a kid, but at the end of the day, he still read it and understood or understands the just the level of what these kids should be learning and how it can impact them. And it's just a great thing. So they've been able to help me continue pushing forward, because I don't want to be cocky, but I am very, very confident that I could get this in the schools.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. So we are at the top of our break hour. We'll be taking a break, and when we come back, we're going to wrap this up. Share a little bit how can people access and get the book, and close off. So please stay tuned. You're listening to Analyze This, 93.1 FM, your WTJX, your NPR radio station. We'll be right back after this break. Good morning once again, and welcome back to Analyze This on WTGX FM 93.1, your NPR station in the Virgin Islands. And this is your guest host, Samuel Carrión, filling in for Neville James this morning. And we are here in our last lap in this show, and we're having a conversation with Leon Perkins, who is a Crucian author, and he's sharing about his book, Value Your Future, a young investor's story. So we're talking about, a little bit knowing a little bit who Leon is, and also about the journey and what's in the book. So thank you once again for being here and sharing with us, and really your passion to empower the next generation in financial literacy.
Yeah, I want to thank you guys for having me. Being able to be out here and getting folks to know and understand about the book, it means a lot. Like we were speaking after air, my goal really is to ensure folks know and learn about finance, not just for the monetary value, but just in general, because making the Virgin Islands better has been something that I love. So if I could do it through what I love, which is finance, then that's a win-win for me.
This is home for you, right? You're a
Yeah.
son of the soil, like you mentioned, and this is your way of contributing to improve, right? Everyone has something to give, something to offer here. So you understand that this is part of your purpose and your plan.
Correct. And if we could create, my goal is to create the Virgin Islands as a New York City in a sense. New York City has a financial district, and millions of companies go to New York just to be able to be next to financial companies. If we could do that for the Caribbean, then that would increase our GDP for the Virgin Islands. But St. Croix will be so blossoming as far as a financial state. In reference to the stock market, you don't have to leave the Virgin Islands to be invested in the stock market. So you could be a Virgin Islander, work in St. Croix, live in St. Thomas, and still be invested in the stock market and make a lot of money, and you won't have to leave. So there's always an opportunity for folks to stay here and become better, but you have to be financially literate and also being able to have that vigor to continue pushing for things locally.
And how important it is to diversify your revenue streams of income.
That's one of the most important things, because if COVID taught us anything, some things can just be taken away in an instant. For instance, we lost a lot of tourism, so at the end of the day, how were we able to, or how will you be able to continue to generate revenue? For me, I was still working for the military, so if you have a secondary income, that will be able to help you, and it won't hinder you in the future. Or
for example, now that we unfortunately have the federal shutdown.
Correct. Yeah.
And we have a lot of federal
workers
employees, federal workers that are not getting paid.
Correct. And to anybody, that is very, very disheartening. But at the same time, yes, you can start investing, and if that's not an eye-opener, then I don't know what to tell you, because at the end of the day, you need to ensure that you are good for yourself, not just for somebody else. And this is one way to empower it for yourself, and it becomes a lot better and easier for you the more you get comfortable within the financial world and so forth.
So, yeah, great point. Now, I wanted to ask you, do you have plans for future books, or perhaps a series on financial topics for different age groups?
Yes. So that was a suggestion. To make it for an adult slash a older teenager, maybe like the 16 to 18 and then plus adults and so forth. I thought about it, and that is one of the things that have in the works, basically to create that for a high school. And one of the main reasons why they didn't originally go that level is because I know when it comes to the foundation, if you build from the foundation, it'll be a lot better and a lot easier. So not saying that those who are older won't be able to grasp or understand it, but if I could start from that age group, I believe that they will be able to progress a little better. So by the time they reach to that high school and adult college level stuff, they would already have those things set in stone for themselves. So,
and at least it awakens their appetite for knowledge in this area.
Correct.
That hopefully, they would continue to pursue, and growing in this area of financial literacy. And we're seeing more now within our education system, they've been including the financial literacy type of
Correct.
courses within the curriculum, which is great, and we should start at a very earlier age if possible.